Hello, everybody. Happy holidays from your old pals here at Beyond the Darkness. I'm your host, Dave Schrader, and over there, my merry little elf, Tim Dennis. Hello, Tim.
Hiya.
We have got to start the show off with a mention of something.
All right.
Because we're the giving sort, Tim, you and me.
Oh, sure.
We love these people. I don't know if I've ever mentioned that out loud, but I do.
No, I've never heard that. No.
Yeah, it's true. I love these people. I love them so much that I don't want to even take a day off for the holidays, Tim. So how about if we do this? This is what my thoughts are.
Sure.
Aside from the astounding shows you're hearing this weekend, True Crime Tuesday falls on Christmas Day. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it'd be really easy to plug in an old show, you know, and say, hey, we'll see you guys in the new year with a whole new series. But no, we may have saved the weirdest, darkest, and most unbelievable episode as the final gift of the year from us to you. Would you say that's a pretty fair assessment?
This episode, Dave, is beyond strange. It's jaw-dropping, to say the least. Yeah.
I can tell you that my love life.
No, Karen, go back in the cabinet until we call you out. You know the rules. Okay. God, I wonder if they do this. Do you ever see people just walk out behind the curtain on Carson's when he's talking with that at the beginning?
No.
How about Letterman and Paul Schaefer? Did you ever see Richard Simmons just burst out and be all like, "Oh, Dave"? No.
Maybe that might have happened.
Karen, that you're right. That one could have.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. But here, well, since you're here with us already, our guest for today, who's so excited to be here, she's jumping in with us right now, Karen Rontowski. And we're going to be talking with her in a few minutes about her incredible life and work in the paranormal and as a comedy writer and a comedian and a tarot expert. And did I mention, Tim, she's kind as fuck. That says so right on her side.
It does.
Yeah.
There's a shirt like that?
Yeah, no, That's what she says right on her website. It's bam, it's right there. It tells you, so she wouldn't lie because it's on the internet. Anyway, about Tuesday, we invited a gentleman on who is a co-author of a book called The Shawcross Letters, and it talks about this friendship, this kinship that grew between one of the authors and Arthur Shawcross, one of the most heinous serial killers in America. And we thought that was the story, dear listeners. But that was like the third running story in the Fantasy Island story. It was like you've got really good A-list actors who are kind of the main stories, and then you've got a B who's kind of the secondary, maybe love story, and then you've got C. You've got Charo in the background having her own fantasy, and that Arthur Shawcross's story kind of blends back into the C category of Fantasy Island and the Love Boat, I would say. Am I fair to address it that way, Tim?
Oh, that's very fair, yeah.
Our guest quickly becomes the most unusual and interesting guest we've ever spoken to, and makes some admissions of his own that might surprise lots of you. So we had a unique experience, I will just say. We've never had a chance to talk to somebody like our guest on Tuesday, and it is eye-opening. So make sure you tune in to the best in true crime on True Crime Tuesday this upcoming week. If you are not subscribed, shame on you. This is an episode you don't want to miss. And if you've been on the fence post wondering, should I jump in? Should I jump out? It's $5. Stop being a cheap ass. Get yourself a subscription. You get 4 brand new episodes every month. Labors of love, amazing true crime stories, plus dumb crime, stupid criminals. And this is going to be one to jump in on. Plus, when you subscribe, you get all of our archives. So the last couple of years of every episode we've done becomes available to you for $4.99 a month. I mean, come on. Seriously? That's less than a cup of coffee at most of these high-priced coffee places, Tim.
Oh, yeah. I mean, especially if you get the venti, which I don't understand what a venti is, but if you get the venti, then by gosh, you've paid for it already. Yeah.
Fancy words. And then they make me try to say them when I go in, Tim, because I go in and I say, I'd like one of your largest coffees. Oh, the venti or the grande sofa. And I'm like, the what? And I think they make things up just to see if the dumb old guy will join in and order a bootlegger sofa venti grande.
Yeah.
With a twist.
Yep.
Two pumps. Whatever that means. Yeah. So that's been my experience.
I think
but that's going on True Crime Tuesday.
They're doing dirty things to your coffee when you order pumps, just so you know that. Yeah.
Speaking of dirty things in my coffee, ladies and gentlemen, Karen Rontowski is joining us right now. Karen is, I can honestly say, she is one of my favorite comedians. She never fails to amaze and amuse and entertain me. I have watched her work a room of 3 people and have us in stitches. I have watched her work a room of up to 7 or 8 people, Tim, and still have us in stitches.
Really?
That's my following.
Yeah, she's. I don't want to brag for her, but she's pretty popular in the homeless sector.
Wow.
They love her on street corners.
Huh.
Well, that's how I tell the club. I'm only performing for 8. 9 walks in, I'm done. No more.
But you got to draw the line somewhere. Well, we've had a chance. Karen has attended many of our paranormal conferences throughout the years. We first met her back in Gettysburg at one of the phenomenology events, which is a tough room to walk into. Seriously, you've got a couple hundred drunk paranormal enthusiasts who are there to pick up people of the opposite sex, sometimes of the same sex, to get drunk and have fun and talk about ghosts.
And sometimes aliens.
Well, there's aliens too, right? And in walks Karen, who then addresses this crowd and quickly had them under her spell. And that was my turning point when I fell deeply in like with Karen and her abilities.
Thank you.
I'm serious. And your videos on Facebook are hysterical.
Oh, thank you. You know what? And it's funny because you said Tuesday night is your most strange and interesting guest. And I thought, well, I might change that. We might have to move that show into second place. Thank you, just my little paranormal Karen.
I would love for you to be weirder or more unusual than the show that's coming up Tuesday, but I also don't want you to be, because that episode is off the hook. It is dark. Bizarre. Yeah, you don't want to go down in the same kind of vein as this show goes down on Tuesday for True Crime Tuesday. It's going to be its own animal and beast, but we got a lot to talk about. You and I, as I said, have met at many of these conferences where you do stand-up comedy, and you also do tarot reading, and you're a paranormal investigator, and you have a sidekick that goes with you on investigations, and you said it's been very helpful.
Courage. Yes. You mean my little dog Courage that goes with me everywhere, and my best friend animal communicator that tells me what the dog is thinking?
Yes. See?
Yes.
Tim, how's that?
Yes,
that's a decent act, yeah.
He's fantastic.
My sidekick is a ghost repeller. He just hangs there, eats donuts, and refuses to believe that ghosts exist. That's the life I lead. You've got a much more exciting life.
I do. I have a little dog that goes with me everywhere, and then I call my friend in Florida, and she tells me what he's thinking, and he tells me what's in the room. And usually it's very fun, although one time we asked him if the aliens were in my room, and he said all the time, and that changed everything. At Tahoe Biltmore, I met, Tana Newberry, right? That's your friend.
Right.
She gave me a UFO reading, and then she told me that I had alien DNA. And what she said was, there's a race of called Palladians, and they are a peace-loving people with soft, beautiful skin, and they're just gorgeous. You're not one of those. And, and then Courage was like, she's right, you are an alien. So I guess I'm that's why I threw aliens into the mix when you were talking about people trying to pick up other people at the Paracons. But yes, Courage comes with me everywhere.
Let me get this straight now. So you have a dog that can see the paranormal, and then you have a friend that's an animal communicator. So what you'll do is contact the animal communicator. She'll psychically or telepathically talk with Courage, your dog, and Courage will then give her information regarding what he is seeing in the room or around you.
Exactly. And my dog has a little bit of an attitude. So she will often call. One day I noticed he wasn't eating his food. And next thing you know, I get a phone call from her. And she says, Courage said, I had just changed his food. And she said, Courage said there used to be little squares in his dish. And now there are little triangles. And he's not going to eat the triangles. And it happens that fast. I was at a party once, and I said to my friend, can you hold the dog for a second? And the next morning, I wake up to a text message that says, this just in, Courage no longer wants to be referred to as the dog. So he's pretty much on it with her. I know, he's got quite an attitude. But he was also the one that tipped off. I always have somebody over my house, Dave. Somebody's always laying on the floor at my house with ayahuasca or out of body or something like that. There's always a bunch of people on the floor. And one day I had a witch come over and teach everyone a fairy spell. Has anybody ever talked about a fairy spell on you? You must have, right?
No. No. Fairy magic, I've heard about, but I've never heard specifically about what the fairy spells are. So please enlighten us.
Well, he had us do a little spell with some chocolate and a piece of string, and we were all supposed to say what we wanted. And I don't know, it seemed very light and harmless, but it was in my house. So the chocolate stayed in my house. You have to give fairies back a gift when you get something from them. So they left a little bag of chocolate in my house for the fairies.
Right.
And we all kind of went home and didn't think anything of it. And the next day I get up and the chocolate has changed color. And I thought that was very odd. And then what happened is, as the weeks to come, I started to get very, you know me, I'm a bubbly, upbeat person. I started to get very angry and very upset about everything and very mad. And then I get a phone call from the animal communicator that says, and during this time I'm meditating, right? And I keep seeing a bunny in front of me when I'm meditating. And a friend of mine says, you have to talk to that bunny. It's a Pooka. I know I'm jumping around. I apologize about that. You know a Pooka from the movie Harvey?
Right. His big, 7-foot tall rabbit friend that nobody else could see, but George O'Dowd or whatever his name was.
Right. And so now we've done the fairy spell. I'm seeing the Pooka and I'm talking to the Pooka and I'm starting to get very angry. And I get a phone call from my friend, the animal communicator, and she says, Courage says, you have a very bad attachment and you're wearing it like a cape. Okay? And I couldn't figure out what this was. I didn't put it together that had to do with the fairy spell that we did earlier. So I call up my demonologist, who is at a wolf sanctuary. I don't know what your demonologist does on a Sunday, but mine's at a wolf sanctuary. And I called him and I said, Courage says that I have a very bad attachment and I'm wearing it like a cape. And he says, do you have any lavender oil, cedar oil, and frankincense? And I said, yes. And he said, really, why? And I said, because it works on menopausal thinning hair, which apparently is a double duty, gets rid of attachments and fixes thinning hair.
Who knew?
So he says, I know, who knew? And so he says, put that on the back of your neck and then call me back and tell me what happens. So I put it on the back of my neck and I feel a huge drip go all the way down to the bottom of my spine. So I call the animal communicator and I say, can you ask Courage what just happened? And she said, Courage said, you just made it worse and it put a big hook in the back of your spine. So I called Tommy, the demonologist, and he said, what did the dog say? And I said, well, the dog said, I just made it worse. So he goes, well, come over to my house right away. So we go over to his house. And we're sitting there for a minute, kind of trying to figure out what's going on. And Tommy says, I'm not really feeling anything. And then his cat walks in the room. Now, his cat spoke with the animal communicator also, and she always calls his cat the Great Buddha, although the cat's real name is Oreo. Oreo comes in the room and just looks at us, and Tommy goes, there it is. And my body drops like 2 inches. And we hear a bang on the other side of the room, and that's the Pooka is set free. So the moral to this story is never talk to a bunny.
That's your takeaway from all this?
That's my whole thing. Never talk to a bunny. But I know it was crazy, but it was almost like this energy lifted from me right away, and the attachment was gone, and I felt so much better.
That's insane. Now, had somebody told you this story, in all honesty, Karen, how hard would your eyes have rolled? Well,
hard, but that was before I knew I was a captain in the Orion Alien Army, Dave.
Oh, well, there's that. I love how Tim, do you enjoy just the throwaway comments? So I called my demonologist, like a gynecologist or a dentist. She just has them on file. I've got my demonologist, Barry. We meet on Fridays.
I don't talk to bunnies to begin with, so I pretty much excluded myself from that story at that point. But yeah, but otherwise, I'm shocked by the rest of it. Yeah.
So you're telling me you sat in righteous indignation and judgment over Karen for talking to a bunny to begin with?
I did, yeah. But other than that, everything else completely shocked me. Yeah,
it all jibed with you. Yeah, I got you.
Yeah,
he's not as caring as I am. What?
I had never seen that movie, and it looked. Seriously, when I was meditating, I usually just go to a blank space. And it was right there, and that's when I learned you shouldn't get your paranormal information from Jimmy Stewart movies, because apparently his sourcing is not that good.
No. So you mean when people ring a bell, angels don't really get their wings? You're trying to tell me that whole paradigm has changed too?
No, I think that's wrong.
Oh my God!
I think we've got some. We've been misled. We've been misled.
How dare you, Jimmy Stewart was a national treasure. How dare you change my perceptions of him in the movies that he shared with me?
I know. Well, we better go back and review them all and see what other information that was wrong. Like maybe we really can't go back and see what the world would be like if we weren't in it.
Ooh, that I don't want to even think about that as a possibility, Karen. I've kept that in my hip pocket as when I'm ready to check out, I want to be able to see what life would have been like without me.
That's right. But yeah, that was probably, I think, honestly, my worst paranormal experience. And now I'm a little bit freaked out about fairies.
Yeah, I would understand that. But did it explain why the chocolate changed colors? Did you ever get any insight on what was going on with that?
Well, I found out a lot about fairy magic and stuff like it. Because honestly, I did not really believe at that point. I was sort of in on spirits and other stuff, and then kind of when it came to fairies and elementals, I was kind of like, I don't know what that is. But the more after this experience, the more reading I did about it, and the more books I got, is you kind of realize that is something that could be floating through your apartment or something you could invite in. And you're supposed to do a trade-off with them. That's what the lady that did the spell didn't tell me, that you give them something in exchange for the spell. But turns out they don't really have a conscience like most of my neighbors in Van Nuys, and they will keep coming and asking for more. And if you don't give them more, they get mad. So it's kind of like a little kid, that you can't see, that starts stomping their feet and going, I want more. And then they start getting angry. So that's why I don't mess with fairies anymore. In fact, I looked it up online, and Pookas is like one of the worst, most feared fairies in Ireland. So I don't know how they got to L.A., but they did.
Oh, it's the steamers in the 30s when they were coming over. This makes me think. This makes me think more about the fact of Bigfoot being a Pookas, because Tim, how many stories have we heard through the years of doing the show, going on year 87, where Bigfoot, the problem lies when people start trying to feed Bigfoot and leave him gifts, and when you stop, that's when all hell breaks loose. That's
pretty much the problem with me too. Yeah. But yeah, that is the problem. It's when you stop feeding them. Yeah.
Yeah, when you stop leaving those gifts and little tributes to him, if you just coexist, it's fine. It's when you start leaving treats and then stop that Bigfoot seems to get really kind of owly and crabby out there.
Yeah.
I wonder if that is. I wonder if he is a Pookas. Then is he a kind of earth fairy? And I don't mean this goofy. I'm serious. I wonder if he is some kind of earth fairy that sometimes you see, sometimes you don't. And when you engage them and give them these gifts, because in a lot of the stories too, Karen, sometimes he'll leave sticks or rocks in place as a trade-off. Like Bigfoot's giving me Charlie Brown. All I got was a rock, and then he takes the food that you've given him. So, boy, that'd be an interesting aspect to examine. As a matter of fact, it is Sunday, the day before Christmas Eve, of course. But I'm going to use this knowledge, and I'm going to beam it back to me for my Friday night Midnight in the Desert show when I talk about Bigfoot being a supernatural being. I may, if I can remember to forward this back in time, this message, I might actually bring this up on Friday night's Midnight in the Desert to discuss with our guest to see if there was anything there. So check out the time travel experiment, folks. If, in fact, I can send this message back from Sunday to Friday, and you check the Friday archives of Midnight in the Desert, let's see if that actually worked. We're going to put some magic to work right now, Karen. Are you excited to be a part of an experiment like that?
I am. I hope it doesn't involve too many fairies, though, or we'll be in trouble.
No. Karen Rontowski, our guest today, and we're talking about her experiences in the paranormal. Was this something that's always been a part of your life, tied into the spirituality and the high strangeness, or was this something you sought out and wanted to bring into your life?
I think it was a little of both. But, when you were talking back conversation, talking about time travel, we were talking about Pookas and Bigfoot. And you know what I always think that on that exchange where they don't give back, I think that's it's like, you know how dogs, they run in the pack and they might bump into each other or hurt each other, but there's no, I think it's just humans that have this, thank you, please, it's polite to give, and then it's done thing. I think they're just working like animals would. Like human beings have a different consciousness thought when they have an exchange. Does that make sense?
To a degree, sure. I'm not trying to get into the mind of a fairy, but you might be onto something.
Yeah, because humans are the only ones, and even in different cultures, that we think, well, you gave me that, so I gave you this. And, like your dog expects you to feed them every night, and they're not saying thank you, but if it's not there, they're going to make a fuss. So I think it's only humans that sort of have that empathy or compassion for the other person, like, thank you for giving me that. So that's what I always thought it was. They have a different consciousness.
Not in my house. Not in my house. The children are my animals as well, and there is no thank you, please, Dad. At the end of they come in, they devour like a swarm of locusts, and then leave the room with their electronics and don't talk to me again until the next day when it's mealtime. That's
right. But
life.
What happens if you don't feed them? They'll start acting like Bigfoots and fairies and start causing trouble.
There is that. Now I have a better understanding. I'll just have to treat them as though they're part of the fairy and legend lore. Oh my God.
That's true. No, I actually I was always kind of, I think as little kids, I was pretty aware. I always had an imaginary friend, but, parents, especially in that day, would really tell you to write that off. But I had my first experience when I was in 6th grade where me and my family, we went to the beach. We're from Massachusetts. It's a long drive to the beach. It's a big day because we didn't live close. And my sister had epilepsy, and she didn't want to go in the water because she had seizures. And she kept saying, I feel like I'm going to have a seizure. I don't want to go in. I don't want to go in. So finally, before we left, she decided to go in. And sure enough, we are all out in the water. She's about 20 feet away from me. And we're all having fun in the waves. First wave goes over. She looks at me and she screams, oh, my God, I'm going to have a seizure. So I run over as fast as I can to get her. And she puts her arms around my neck and sort of sits on my hip, like holding on really tight. And I started to run into the beach. And in my head, I heard, don't run to the beach, run out deeper into the water. So I turn around and I start running out deeper into the water. An enormous wave comes, and my father said the only thing that made it over the wave was her head. And if we had been in any closer, the undertow would have pulled us out, or we would have tumbled in the wave. So when we got to shore, I said to her, my dad had been standing right next to her, and I said, Dad, why didn't you grab her when she screamed? And he said, she never screamed. And I said, Sue, tell Dad that you screamed, oh, my God, I'm going to have a seizure. And she said, I never screamed. I froze. So that was kind of the first big experience I ever had that kind of got me into the believer mode, you could say.
So do you think this was a telepathic scream then? I mean, when you think back on it now, do you remember looking at her and seeing her mouth open and the words actually come out? Or do you just remember hearing the scream and then you reacted?
I remember seeing her face. I remember seeing her scream and yell, "Oh my God, I'm going to have a seizure." But it's interesting because her and I were so close, especially at that time, that I don't know if it would be both, but I will tell you, to this day, I remember seeing it on her face. I remember seeing the fear, and I remember how she looked at me, and I remember her screaming. So I don't know. It was probably somewhat telepathic, but I don't know. Do images ever go that way telepathically? Maybe the images in my brain, but that was the first time I had anything kind of psychically happen that others were like, "Oh, that did happen."
Well,
proof.
In a sense, it makes complete sense as well, because had she screamed, "I'm going to have a seizure," and everybody heard, and then you grabbed her and began running deeper into the water, it would have looked insane, and they may have fought you for that, which may have eventually cost her life. So,
right.
It's wow, that's powerful. I mean, that's powerful. And you, after that, did it affect you, or was it kind of out of sorts, out of mind right after it took place?
No, you know what? It's kind of strange, but I do think when we get in this paranormal field, I think we do have, I don't know, a lot of people always say they're skeptics. I think that people kind of oversell that skeptic. I'm very much a believer. I'm all in, and I think it just sort of enhanced my belief that there's a lot more going on here than meets the eye. So I think it kind of made me even more curious, but I really do think, I don't know if, I feel like when the paranormal first started to really explode, everybody would always talk about what a skeptic they were. And obviously, having dealt with many Pookas or whatever, I'm always like, nope, I'm all in. I'm ready to believe and I'm ready to jump in. And I think that was probably one of those experiences that sort of gave me that thought. Anything is possible.
I like that concept. And it did re-explode. I think people are using the word skeptic because they want to tell you their story, but they don't want you to get into judgy-wudgy mode, right? Hey, listen, I'm a skeptic. Right. I wouldn't have believed this, but it happened to me. I think there's that kind of throwaway line just to say I'm not a fool. I'm not easily tricked. And I wonder if that's why so many people did it. And so many people have slowly lowered that level when they communicate, because it has become, water cooler talk. There's a paranormal show on every network at one point, right? From the supernatural scripted TV shows to John Edwards crossing over, talking to the dead. And then you've got Ghost Adventures, Ghost Hunters, Most Haunted, Paranormal State, Paranormal Lockdown, Paranormal Challenge. I mean, you name it. There's been a show out there that's crossed over just about every genre. So I think people have become more suited to this kind of new world that we're in, where the paranormal is no longer as weird as it once was, or it seems to be a lot more easily acceptable. We have to take a break. We'll come back. We've got more with Karen. And remember, if you're looking for something great to listen to, tell them real quickly how they can find your podcast, Karen.
Oh, they can find Paranormal Karen, which is a 1-hour podcast. They can find it on iTunes or on YouTube or wherever. And also the little 1-minute Paranormal Karens. Look for Paranormal Karen on Facebook, and those are all comedy.
Great. We will take a break. We'll be right back right here on Beyond the Darkness.
Beyond the Darkness.
Jingle bell, jingle bell rock. Jingle bells ring and jingle bells ring. Snowing and blowing, but bushels of fun. Now the jingle hop has begun. Jingle bell, jingle bell, jingle bell rock. Jingle bells time and jingle bell time. Dancing and prancing in Jingle Bell Square. In the frosty air.
Welcome back to the show. This is the best in paranormal talk radio. This is Beyond the Darkness. I'm your host, Dave Schrader, and we will be back again next week with all new episodes, and Theater of the Mind will begin. Is that even a thing, Tim? Can it begin again next week?
It can begin again, yes.
Yeah, we took a week off because there is so much time and effort put into creating a Theater of the Mind, and we're both pressed to the walls with all the things that are going on for the holidays and family fare and stuff. So please excuse us for not having a Theater of the Mind for you this week, but we gave you that Theater of the Mind collective on Thanksgiving. You can just go back and listen to that fun stuff again. And we'll be back next week with brand new Theater of the Minds. And we're coming up, Tim, on a new anniversary. Can you believe it?
Yeah.
January 1st, we will launch into our 14th year on the air.
Well, it's 13. Yeah, it's our 13th year, Dave.
Well, aren't we in our 13th year right now?
No. This is year 12, and we go into 13.
I don't believe your math. I don't trust you. You're hopped up on the goofballs.
No, Dave. You're always wanting to give us 1 year credit more than we actually have.
Because do you know how damn much work this show is, Tim? It feels like we've been on for 28 years.
No, it's
13 seems like the right amount of years. I think we're launched into this is our 13th season.
No. This is our 12th season, Dave. We're going into season 13.
Common Core math bullshit. I don't believe it.
I can't believe the enthusiasm that Tim has. It's hard to capture. You know, I did that once. I invited all my friends over for my 50th birthday, and then they hired a numerologist, and the numerologist goes, I go, what can you tell me? She goes, I can tell you're going to celebrate this birthday next year because you're not 50, you're 49. So I have made the same mistake myself, forgetting my age.
Wow, look at that. See, it's magical. Only I seem to keep wanting to add an ear. Add a year.
Yeah.
I don't want to add an ear. I'd like to add many ears to the show, but that's beside the case.
You can't take the credit before you do the work. That's the thing. You gotta we gotta get there before we can say we are. You know?
Who made up that stupid rule?
Life. Life made that rule, Dave. Life did.
So we're wrapping up our 12th year, technically on the air.
Yes.
But I've been broadcasting in my mind since 1977 to a very wide telepathic audience. So 12 years on the air completed. We're launching into lucky number 13. Wow.
Yeah.
13. Yeah. 13 years. This, Tim, may be my longest relationship, aside from the ones I have with my children, but they're starting to test my patience. I might need a break. It's not them, it's me. No, it's them. It's definitely them. All right, 13 years. We're going to launch off. January 1st, we launch into our 13th year. That's exciting stuff. And I want to thank all of our listeners for the kind messages we've gotten about the holidays, for the support and love you've shown us over the years, and we hope that it will continue to grow. We are going to be making some fun changes in the next year here to the show, and tweaking and pinching and cajoling new aspects of the show into shape and bringing them out, and we hope that you'll remain part of that ride with us. So thank you from the bottom of our hearts, and even from the bottom of our guest's heart. Karen Rontowski is with us. She's a comedian, a writer, a tarot expert, a paranormal investigator. She is also the owner of Courage. And if we can't refer to Courage as a dog, what is his proper title now?
I don't know. I just call him a big spirit. I'm also the person that wore out the backslash, as you put all my titles out there. Paranormal, backslash, tarot reader, everything. You know what? I'm not sure. I think Courage thinks he's human.
Have you asked him what his concept of himself is?
You know what? The animal communicator actually, she nicknamed him the boss because she says he's so bossy. So I think he's just the boss. That's I don't know that has a species to it, but he likes being the boss.
So now, this animal communicator, does this animal communicator tell you that all animals have this ability, or is the great Buddha and the boss, are they kind of magical beings themselves that they're able to do what they do?
She says she has a real connection with Courage, because Courage, the boss, he pops in oftentimes, he pops in to say hello and leave her messages. But she's incredible with domesticated animals. In fact, sometimes someone will call her to find a lost animal, and she'll call me, and I'll do the tarot. She can see what the dog or cat sees, and with the tarot, I can find landmarks or direction, north, south, east, west, and things like, he's near water, so we kind of connect on that and do that together, which is kind of like two perspectives, I guess, one from the dog's eyes and then one from above. But it's interesting because she says the longer they are, if they run away and it gets to be a couple of days or a week or something, it's almost like the signal gets a little weaker because they're moving into their kind of instinctual wild side and less out of their domestic side. But I think the most interesting she had with a wild animal was she was driving and there was a large snake on the other side of the road that had been hit by a car, and she just heard it go, I was just trying to get over there. Like then it must have got, I was just trying to get over there, and it got hit. So it must not have known it was gonna die. And she's like, that's the first time I ever heard a snake.
Wow, that's crazy. The only reason I ask is, I know some people feel that there is a very psychic connection with their pets. I do not feel that with mine. And I don't mean that in a rude or dismissive way, but I feel like I am a possible food source for them at some point. My 5
maybe
cats.
Maybe they don't have any complaints in your house. Maybe they're like, this is great.
Well, maybe that's the whole scenario. They like throwing my stuff off of everything, but yeah, I don't have that kind of psychic connection. Although I will tell you, it's really strange. When I've been really sick, or when I was going through, the loss of my mom, my cats would not leave my side. And they're pretty, they like their cuddles and the snuggles, but that's usually like for 10, 15 minutes. And then we'll see you again in a few hours if you're lucky, human. But when I was in those states, these cats would not leave me. They snuggled, they cuddled, they laid on my heart. It was pretty remarkable. So there is, you got to give animals credit that they do seem to sense when there is something off about their loving friends, and they do their best to try to comfort you.
Well, I met the animal communicator because I lived in this little guest house that was probably the most haunted. It was just weird. Radio stations changing on their own, all kinds of crazy things. And I moved him in, and Courage is small. He's like 6 pounds now. He was 3 pounds when I got him. He was very small, and he got very, very ill in this house. And I remember at the time that happened, again, I had been meditating, and I opened my eye, and out of the corner of my eye, I saw kind of a black mass that looked like, the shape of it looked like, the movie with the Minions and Steve Carell plays the guy that's all hunched over?
Gru.
Yes.
Yes.
And he had the long nose, and the thing turned its head, and I kind of saw it had a long nose like the cartoon, and the minute we made eye contact, it disappeared. And after that, Courage got really sick, and someone said, you have to call this woman. And so I called her, and she said immediately, I'm only telling you this because I know you're a Reiki master and you're into paranormal, but something is in that apartment making him sick. He couldn't walk. I thought he was going to die. I was spending thousands at vets. Nobody knew what was wrong. He wouldn't eat. And she said, you need to cleanse that apartment now. And I did a Reiki cleanse with Palo Santo, and Courage walked out from under the bed completely healed. And that was when I made the connection with her. And she said, this is a super sensitive dog. And whatever was in your place there, it was just pulling energy away from him. He couldn't even see straight. So that was how I met her. And also, Courage works as a therapy dog. And so she said, after that, she said, do you have any more questions for him? And I was like, well, now I have 1 million questions for him if he's clearing, you know what I mean, if this is
right.
What's going on. And I said, he hates the dog in the front house, because he has this little job as a therapy dog. He hates the dog in the front house. I said, why does he hate that dog? And without missing a beat, she goes, oh, that dog doesn't have a job. He was like, that dog's not as good as me. He doesn't have a job. Why would I hang out with that dog?
Wow, so your dog's kind of an elitist.
He's very much an elitist. That's the boss.
I like that you're unapologetic. Oh, yes, he's horribly judgmental and an elitist. That's great.
He is. He hates all huskies. He's kind of, I don't know, that's not racist, but he hates all huskies. And I said to her, why does he hate huskies? And she said, he said it has to do with a past life. And I said, well, to ask him what that means. And she said, he doesn't want to talk about it.
Jeez. What a straight. So he chose to come back again as a dog. Well, I mean, if he's going to hang out with you, I get it. But I mean, that's interesting to me. Did you ever ask, did he ever have a lifetime in human form?
I didn't ask that, but I think really the smartest souls always come back as the dog of a single woman, because that is the easiest life you will ever have, is being the dog of a single woman. that is spoiled to the hilt. So he's probably smarter than all of us.
Yeah, but see, I'd love to do that. Have you taken him to many haunted locations? And, knowing that he can kind of draw this attention, are you concerned for his health or safety, knowing that the spirits might attach?
Yes, because if we get, there's some haunted places I can take him, but some he will get very frightened and I'll feel him start to shake. And I kind of like, yeah, that's not for him. And now he's 15, so I don't want to sort of, I'm wondering what's that one scare. I don't know if going to a haunted house has the same stress level as taking a bath, but those two seem to freak him out quite a bit. But I was working in Utah once. I love working in Ogden, Utah, and that is one haunted city, I'll tell you. And that's where I go around and I shoot my little paranormal Karens and I go to the haunted places and make jokes. Well, there's a hotel across the street, and it changed names. It used to be called the Ben Lomond. And I was thinking of going over, and she calls me one day and says, Courage says, he showed me a building. This is what it looks like, and it's a very specific building. And she says, you are to never go in that building. Courage says you're to never go in that building. And it took, of course, I had to go then, but I think it took 2 other visits. I went back to that building, and I think it was one of the most haunted places I have ever been. It was darkly haunted. And when I was on stage, I said, anybody that has a story about the Ben Lomond, can you come tell me after the show? Well, it was one of those stories where you go on the internet and it's, someone died of a broken heart when her son went to war, and then, someone else died of this, and all these kind of fluff stories. And then when you hear the real stories, you go, wow, what is going on in there? And I think I went in once. It was all the 11th floor. They had it all blocked off at one time because there was something going on in that 11th floor. People would come in. I found all this out after my dog told me I can't go into that hotel. People would run into the lobby and jump in the elevators, go to the 11th floor, and then commit suicide out the window. They just come out of nowhere. Like, it was the hauntings were all very strange, and they were all kind of around that 11th floor. So he was very vocal about not going in there. So I think I have to be careful with him, but we've also found, like, we think that dogs and cats are out of their bodies way more than we know. Like, we have had, when we got stumped on a case, I told the animal communicator she needs to write a book, and she needs to call it, Have You Seen a Pit Bull Wearing Pearls and a Tiara? Because a pit bull got lost from a Halloween party, and we were trying to find it, and it was literally wearing pearls and a tiara. So when the dog was gone, I think, for like 2 weeks or something like that. It was a very long time. And we were getting very worried because we both kind of felt like this is not, he's been gone too long and we're losing the connection and we can't kind of find him. And I said, hey, ask Courage where he is. So she tunes into Courage, and we kind of had this park or this area where it was close. And Courage tells her exactly where the dog is. And he says something like, tell the people to look for a rock or something. And the dog was eventually found, and he was all curled up so that all you could see was kind of the top of his back. And the people thought he was a rock because he was so curled up. They thought he was a rock. And that's how the pit bull was found. But we've had other cases where there was a dog that ran away that had on a sweater, and he was gone for 2 weeks, and the dog returns after 2 weeks, sweater on, clean as the day he left. So we think they're actually going interdimensional, because we figure that dog would have had to escaped, got caught, somebody washed the sweater, put it back on, and then the dog came home. So Courage says that animals are interdimensional all the time, that they're coming and going. And we kind of think the same thing. We also had a cat that we couldn't find. I kept saying, there's a big green furnace. I don't know why. I kept saying, I got a big green furnace. And she kept saying, there's a wood pile and there's a shed with a pink roof. And it turned out the lady we were talking to don't ask me how this happens, had bought an abandoned zoo, and there was a pink snake house or something that had the furnace on the outside and a wood pile. And we kept saying, he's in that shed. And Courage said, he's in the wood pile. She's going to find him in the wood pile. And no cat, 2-3 weeks, boom, she comes out. There's the cat in the wood pile, sitting on top of the wood pile, perfectly safe. So we're starting to think that that animals are more interdimensional than we think. So that's been, how do you go for 2 weeks and come back with a clean sweater? That's not, if a dog can do laundry, that's the dog I want.
I don't know. Tim and I can't go 10 minutes at McDonald's without spilling something on our shirts. So you're asking the wrong guys when it comes to that. Now, what would have really been amazing is if he would have shown up in like the sweater was gone, but he was wearing, a top hat and tails. That would have been a better ending. Can you I know people are going to drive me crazy, and I didn't know if I wanted to push because you just keep calling this person the animal communicator, but I know everybody's going to go nuts because they want communication with their animals.
Yes.
Is this somebody you can mention their legal name here or what?
Absolutely. It's Sonia King. And if anybody wants to get a hold of her, they can look at soniakingcomedy.com or just email me at paranormalkaren@gmail or Karen Rontowski. Yeah, we work together all the time. So, yeah, and she does readings, and they'll love her. We don't do that many lost animals because that takes a long time and it can get very, and we do it for free. So too many, sometimes we have to cut it down. But if you want a reading and find out what's going on with your animal, she's amazing.
Do you guys have you ever tried to take on a case of a missing person to see if the interdimensional creatures in our houses might actually be able to tune in on that and give us any insight?
We haven't, but that's a great, we should try that sometime. I would love that because I know she once talked to a cat that told the lady who robbed her house, and it ended up being workmen that had been there weeks earlier.
Huh. Yeah, it would be interesting, right? And especially because, a lot of people still sense their animals around them after their passing. And it'd be interesting if somebody did go missing that had a pet that was close to them that had passed. Would the spirit of that animal be able to communicate with Courage to give some insight?
Yeah, and we just have to make sure it's not a husky, or Courage will not speak to him. We really should try that because, especially too, Courage is 15, and I worry about how elderly he's getting. But I think she said he's kind of her. Sometimes they have one dog that is the particular go-to dog, and she says Courage is it for her.
Do you, it's got to be hard too, right? I mean, these are our fur friends, our little adorable pets, but to also realize this much higher consciousness, does that ever, are you ever self-conscious about, being around the house or things that you do or the people you hang out with, that your dog is just totally judging you?
Oh, my dog is totally judging. I'm not. I thought you were going to say, do you ever feel crazy saying things like the dog said? And, for some reason I don't. And people go, wait, who said that? And I go, oh, I have to remember. You don't know how crazy I am. Courage is, he actually has a lot of opinions about the people that come to my house. And I remember one time sitting at I can't remember what kind of a party it was. I think I was doing tarot at something, and it was very upscale, and I got a text message from her, and it said, Courage says you're bound a whole bunch of people that think that they know what they're talking about, and they don't. I was like, oh, well, that sounds like this group. So I guess I don't get conscious, but he knows I hold the key to chicken, so I'm in charge, essentially.
The opposable thumbs rule again. I love it. Karen, I think it's time you put the dog to use and start having the dog help you place some bets. That would be something.
He gives 2 paws up for that. He takes CBD oil.
Does he really?
Yeah.
No wonder he's an enlightened being. See, you need this. You mentioned something back there. You said when you're helping to locate lost animals, you'll use the tarot to help you. You'll throw the tarot, if you will, to bring out these bits. I've never heard that you can use tarot cards for detailed information like that. I guess I've always thought of tarot as kind of when you're reading somebody's tarot, each one of these are giving you a key into an element of their life. How do you use it to specifically key in on a location or direction?
Well, it's, the way I got it started with tarot was I call her my tarot teacher, told me to get a deck, and I was not confident in my abilities. And I thought, what, if I learn all the symbolism, every line, every color, everything about these cards, I should be able to put this together. So I kind of became a little bit of a tarot historian. And each card does have a direction, whether it's north, south, southwest, or something like that. When you really dig into details, a lot of tarot card readers, I call it two ways. I can say you work off the deck, which is where you kind of glimpse and get what it just kind of helps you put images in your head. And then I have what I call the hard read, which is where I literally stare at a card and know and just kind of wait to see what about the card pops up. For example, somebody once called me and they said, sometimes it can be this easy. They couldn't find their car keys of someone that had passed away or something. They were trying to get all the things in order and pulled up the Hierophant, and there is literally 2 keys at the bottom. And I was like, oh, the keys are right there. And she was like, oh, they were. They didn't know how the keys had closed up. Or sometimes, each card has a direction or an astrological sign. So it's literally just enough research into 2 books to find out what everything means. There's a great book that is like a tarot encyclopedia, and it's called The Rabbi's Tarot. And it's almost a hard read because it's everything in that card all the way. It just is so much detail. But that's where I started trying to get the detail on everything, including the direction. So sometimes I'll pull out that too and see, or does this mean a statue or something like that? But it just kind of all clicks together, I guess. Is that a random answer? Or did it make some sense?
I get where you're going with that. I'm surprised. I guess I'm always surprised by this. And let me ask you, when you use the tarot cards, do you really think the cards are what are giving you the answers, or are you picking up and perceiving information and using the cards as a crutch?
I think the cards are a crutch, kind of, because I was also taught, a lot of people are very careful. The deck has to go in a silk bag and nobody can touch it, and I need to cleanse it. And I was taught, these are pieces of paper, don't worry about it. And that's how I've always been. I don't care if people touch the cards or freak out about anything like that. So I really do think it's an image that it puts on your head, but sometimes I think it's literally looking at the card and I know exactly what this card means. I know that the magician has to do with the right side of the head. I know that the moon card has to do with the back side of the head. So sometimes it's literally that easy.
When you place it, now I've always been fascinated by this. When you're doing the placement of tarot cards, I see there's many different versions that people do. That's why I started to wonder if there's any real science to the tarot, or is it in the way that the person that's doing it perceives these? Is it any different than a tea leaf reading, or reading the bones or runes or things like that? Or are they just utilizing that as kind of a smoke and mirrors effect while they're tapping in? You keep kind of focused on the pretty pictures and the bones or whatever is out there, while the medium or the psychic is actually picking up on that information. So I guess that kind of answers my question with these different throws and the way the cards are laid out. Really is going to be dependent on the person because of how they work and how it helps them feel more comfortable tapping into that insight.
Yeah, I think anytime people start to come up with rules, there's no rules. What works for you works for you. It's like, I know people that are really afraid of tarot decks, so they sort of gather, whenever you have fear, they gather, I can't read because it's terrifying. There are dark energies around. Well, that's because you're afraid of them. Mine are cardboard. They're not, there's nothing to them. But yeah, I think you put sort of, how they work for you is different for everybody, and how you interpret them is different for everybody. So I always say no rules. I can teach someone my guidelines, but sometimes, I know when people come over, sometimes I'll drop a card and they'll go, oh, what does that mean? And I go, oh my God, that means I dropped a card. That's all that means. It doesn't mean anything terrible is going to happen. So, yeah.
See, I would have too much fun with that. And I can't believe you as a comedian, you don't drop the card and then look at somebody and go, oh, Sorry. I hope you have your things in order. Right? That would be I'd be the worst psychic with that. I'd be messing with people constantly.
Well, sometimes I have, I ended up reading, this is very odd. You never know who's a believer and who's not. I ended up reading for a bunch of CEOs, and I could not believe they're all hanging on my every word. And one of them said he worked for a gun company. And just for a second in my mind, I heard, this is how the Winchester house got started. You need to mess with this guy. And I was like, no, I better not.
Yeah, you don't want to challenge the fates on these type of things. Do you find that when you're out and about, now that you're kind of really tapping into all of this, do you get overwhelmed, especially in the comedy scene, when you're out and you're performing in front of large crowds and you're bringing the euphoria up, you're kind of engaging that with people? That's got to be kind of like a cocaine rush for somebody with your abilities, kind of pulling on all that happiness and joy. But the other way said, when you go into public places like a mall, do you just feel like, this vacuum suck to your soul at times?
When I say heavily on the road, I think for 20 years I was heavily on the road, which was about 30, 35 weeks a year. And that's a lot of traveling. And I think I sort of built up a really good, I guess some psychics would say protection, but I really built up a nice kind of energy that sort of keeps things, like not picking up off a lot or not draining from energy outside. And I think I got a really good grounded energy in that time. So that stuff doesn't really bother me. When I'm on stage and it's really, you get that, your people are laughing and it really is a high, and it really does. That's why comedy is kind of so hard. You go do a show and then you're all wound up and then you got to get up at 6 a.m. and do a radio show. So there's sort of this spinning of your energy. You're way high up. You got to sleep. You got to get up again, kind of thing like that. But I think the only time I've really noticed a problem, or I must have developed really good boundaries with all that time on the road, but I do probably 4 to 5 tarot readings a day sometimes when I'm at home now. And I have never slept better than a day when I have done 4 readings in a row, because that makes me, I'm telling you, I run, I go to yoga every day, I ride my bike. Nothing is as exhausting as that many tarot readings. Just out.
Do you think because you're pulling through all of the emotions and the thoughts and everything that the people that are before you bring, is that what it becomes so draining?
Yeah, I do. And I think I have to, when people make an appointment with me, there's usually like a 15-minute window in there. And that's when I go out and I kind of hang onto a tree or something like that and get regrounded. Because, I think that it's almost kind of like I'm floating. Sometimes I do so many readings that kind of can't see straight. And I think I really have to regroup. And that's when I don't have a lot of crystals around my house, but that's when I'll sort of hang on to those to get me grounded. But it's just the concentration. It's what they feel. Sometimes I'm like, oh my God, do you have a headache? And then I'll have the headache. But it's amazing to me that I cannot physically exhaust my body unless it's like mental energy. Like it's pretty fascinating. It must be that concentration that's so deep.
Very cool. Well, Karen, I know you've got stuff to do. You got to get flying. I wanted to thank you for sharing a little bit of time with us here before the holidays, giving us some insights and some fun stories about you and Courage, the psychic dog. And please keep in touch with us. I did an episode of your show not too long ago, and I know that's up on your podcast page, and we're going to put up links to your podcast.
By the way.
Wow, I like the sound of that.
Still getting emails about you. You're the best, Dave. You're my favorite. You're the best.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And as I said at the beginning of the show, without pretense, you are one of my favorite comedians. I think you are great. And I mean that wholeheartedly. I've seen a lot. I've seen some of the most well-known comedians in the world, and I've watched them fail in epic ways. And I have seen you go into places that you should not have succeeded in, that you destroy. So you have a true gift. And I think people sense that light in you, and that's what brings it out. So keep doing what you're doing. And let's visit again in the future when you get some more strange stories with you and Courage getting out there and investigating. Would you do that?
I will anytime. Thank you so much, Dave.
Have a good one. And for Tim Dennis, I'm Dave Schrader. Tim, do you have any holiday wishes you want to put out there for people?
Just that everyone has a very Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year, and that you remember not only to spend the time with your family and enjoy your family, but reach out to somebody this holiday season that may not be as fortunate and extend that holiday cheer and that love to somebody that may not be so fortunate this holiday season.
And this is a great time to regroup and reconnect with people that you may have let slide in your life. And listen, life gets busy. We understand that. More than anybody, we understand that. But you've got to also remember that one phone call may be the phone call that takes somebody back from the dark edge. So make sure that you remember to acknowledge the people in your life and let them know they're loved and cared for. You are all certainly loved and cared for from your two buddies here at Beyond the Darkness. Have a great holiday, everybody. We'll see you again next week with more of the best in paranormal talk radio. And remember to tune in Tuesday, True Crime Tuesday. This episode will rock your world. It is one of the most unusual and unexpected episodes we've ever done. Check it out. You can subscribe and find information on all the shows I'm a part of right at darknessradio.com. You'll find links to Beyond the Darkness with Tim Dennis and I every Saturday and Sunday, True Crime Tuesday every Tuesday with Tim Dennis and I, and Monday through Friday you can find information regarding Midnight in the Desert, the other anomalous talk radio show that I'm a part of, and Tim is one of our fill-in hosts. So go check it out for yourself, darknessradio.com, and keep up with all the ways that you can see us and meet us in the coming year. As a matter of fact, to make a quick mention, I will be in New Orleans the 4th, 5th, and 6th of January for Wizard World Convention. Jason Momoa, Aquaman, signed on immediately after they brought me on, Tim. I don't know if that's coincidence or he's a fan. Either way, I'll be excited to be there with Jason Momoa. They've got cast members from The Walking Dead. They've got cast members from the TV series Charmed, the original series, from the series Outlander. They've got some of your pop cult favorite fan people and everybody, plus cosplayers and a lot of other great panels and discussions. I'll be doing talks Friday, Saturday, and Sunday on the paranormal. Saturday, Dark Waters, one of your favorite guests on our show, will join me along with Nikki Folsom and a few other guests to do a paranormal discussion on New Orleans nightmares, the paranormal of Louisiana. So that'll be on Saturday at the Wizard World Convention in New Orleans. And here's a cool deal. If you go to wizardworld.com and get your passes for the weekend, just enter Darkness 20 at checkout. Darkness 20, and you'll be able to get 20% off the cost of the entire event for yourself. That's it. Be kind, love one another, have a fun, happy, festive holiday. Put away the anxieties and stresses of the past year and just be in the moment and live your truth. Have a great Christmas and a happy holidays.